I don't like the disrespectful way you talk to him. Please be more friendly and open your heart. He's one of us. Don't be so aggressive, my friend.
Anyway, I think such experiments bring out contradictions, and they're great to pursue, but ultimately, I mean, I actually would make the argument that if you want to think of democracy as a form of collective problem solving rather than as a sort of conflict of interest through various forms of power broking, you're going to have to actually create a more egalitarian society in order to even be able to do that. So, you know, all power to them for trying, you know, but it'll never get anywhere unless somebody else is doing what we're doing at the same time. The third question was about
Montreal. Students, Montreal.
Students, yes, students. It's an interesting thing. I mean, people ask me all the time to compare the difference between the global justice movement and Occupy. I mean, I am a person who is sort of an element of continuity, since I was one of those incredibly stubborn people who never wanted to admit that, like, the global justice movement wasn't going to come back, you know. We're just smashing our heads against the wall every year saying, no, this year it's going to be, we're back again. And it's funny because, you know, you get to this point where your whole political life is organized around something that on some level you no longer really believe is going to happen, but you just won't admit that to yourself. And then it happens, and you're like, whoa. I was the most shocked, really, when it took off the way it did. But I think that it's interesting that when people ask for differences between the two, that, you know, the global justice movement, the great metaphor was always the carnival or the festival. You know, the festival of resistance, the carnival against capitalism. In a way, the sort of traditional model of how a revolution works is thrown into reverse. You know, it used to be like, first you have the battle with the forces, you know, the border, the army, the cops, whoever it is, and then you win and you have this spontaneous festival and celebrate it. Yay, the revolution. And then you have to go about creating real forms of direct democracy, and eventually this is supposed to lead to a profound cultural transformation of sensibilities. And the global justice movement was kind of that backwards. You start with these group, you know, sort of subcultural groups that are already trying to change your basic everyday sensibilities. You form groups based on direct democracy, create a celebratory festival, which then ends up with battles with the police. But it starts with the sort of theme of the carnival and the clowns, the puppets, and so forth. And Occupy, on the other hand, you know, it starts with the camp, the community, the food, the library. And I think that's an interesting transformation. In almost all other ways, it's really the same. You're creating this image of what a actually democratic society might be like to counterpose to this sort of undemocratic institution that right next to you. So that the prefigurative politics itself becomes a means of challenging power. But you know, why the difference from one stage to another? I think it has a lot to do with the fact that, you know, the global justice movement, when it was in North Atlantic countries, in Europe and America, was essentially a solidarity movement. And this is a movement really about our own communities. I think I have a whole analysis. I think it comes down to a crisis of caring paper. You know, we have a major shift again in class and forms of exploitation. And I am actually convinced that in the U.S. for the great reward that's given to people is the ability to be a nice person. If you go into, I mean, if you look at the 99%, we are the 99% web page. You know, the complaint you hear over and over again is almost all people who are in medicine, they're service provision of some kind in education, basically who want a job where they can be nice to other people and just not be an asshole, not be a selfish jerk with their lives. And you know, what you see is all these people saying, well, if I want to have a life where I'm, you know, nice to people, I take care of people. You know, they're going to put me so deeply in debt I can't even take care of my own children. That is where it really strikes home, I think, the sort of economic violence that's going on, so that creating a community based on mutual aid and caring, sort of in the face of like the most ultimate symbol of capitalism, becomes this ultimate revolutionary act. And I think that you see that over and over again, even in Montreal as well. Actually, my girlfriend is in Montreal right now, that's where she's from. She's just like gone through this incredible experience of academic burnout, where, you know, she just like gotten really sick, and it was just because of this intensity of being drawn into exactly this kind of model where you have to like fill out forms every day and apply for grants, and you know the incredible pressure and debt that you get into from trying to pursue a non-asshole career. In her case, an anthropologist. And it's amazing the sort of restorative power of just going out in the street and seeing all these people like being kind to one another, enthusiastic about something. Cured herself in like a matter of weeks or days. So I think that it's an interesting thing to think about. That even though on the one hand, you know, unlike the global justice movement, there's an incredible amount of absolute misery that just like brought people out into the streets. You also have this sort of immediate experience of mutual aid and love, which is like much more profound than anything I've seen in other social movements. It seems to reveal a lot of the power of the thing and reason that it spread so quickly. It's because there's just an absolute deficit of that in ordinary life.
More questions?